Hey everyone, it's Lexi. So in today's video I'll be doing the mid-year book Freakout tag. So this is something I always look forward to every 6 months of the year because it really does a good job of reflecting on all of the books that I read and just kind of summarizing the ups and downs of the reading experience. So I'll have the questions linked down below along with the original creator, so you can go check out her video, and if you want to participate you can also answer the questions in the comment section below. So without further ado, let's get started. And just to start out, I'm going to apologize if you hear voices in the background. My mom is on a Zoom meeting and she's being very energetic, so I can kind of hear her. So I don't know if you guys can hear her, but I can. So if you hear any weird voices, it's just my mom. So this one would have to be Beartown. So this was the second book that I read of 2020, and I felt like it did a really good job at kickstarting this really good reading year so far. But what I loved the most about this book was how it tackled this hard subject matter, and it was also very realistic. I feel like this book in particular, it makes you angry, and I think it's supposed to. And essentially the premise of the story, it takes place in this small town in Switzerland, and they are known for their hockey, and the town is very much in kind of economic turmoil, but their pride and joy is the junior A hockey team. So when their junior A hockey team ends up in the finals, everyone's really excited, but a couple nights before the the big game, there is a rape that occurs between the star hockey player and the general manager's daughter, and it kind of goes off from there. But what I really enjoyed about this, which made it really hard to read, it was realistic in the sense that it showed how different people respond to rape and how that can divide a town, and it highlighted rape culture and all that, and it makes you super angry because it paints such a realistic portrait of kind of what this topic is and kind of how people deal with that. So I think it was really well done. The writing is very lyrical as well, and it really sucks you in. Definitely Lost Roses by Martha Hall Kelly, and this is the second book in the Lilac Girls series. So the first book, Lilac Girls, followed Caroline during World War II. This one follows Caroline's mother during World War I, and I really like this one. It highlights Caroline's mother's friendship with a woman who's kind of from the aristocrat society in Russia, and this kind of takes place during the Russian Revolution, and it kind of goes into that. I really loved the Russian Revolution setting. I remember being totally fascinated with this time in history, especially with the royals and everything, but I've never actually read anything from that time frame, so I was totally sucked in, and I had no idea this one dealt with that. So I was like, oh, this one was so interesting, and this really lived up to my expectations of Lilac Girls. I wasn't as attached to these characters as I was with Lilac Girls, but I still really enjoyed the storyline. I like how it showcases women's stories during these points in time where women are often kind of put on the back burner for these things. So yeah, I really love this one, and I cannot recommend this series enough. The Splendid and the Vile by Erik Larson. I've read two of Erik Larson's books, one in high school and one during my undergrad, and I really like this one, and this one highlights Winston Churchill and his family during the Blitz during World War II, and I think that's really exciting. Especially with The Crown, I feel like I've learned more about Winston Churchill and kind of his personality more, so I'd be very curious to see how I feel reading about this one and what I learn about him. And what I like about Erik Larson is that he writes nonfiction, but he does so in a way that is almost a novelization of their life. So he includes many resources and references in here. He will quote things from their diaries or other people's perspectives to help you get kind of the biggest understanding of that character. And so if you're looking to kind of start into nonfiction, I highly recommend checking his books out. He covers a wide variety of topics, and they're all really well done. Troubled Blood by Robert Galbraith. I am so excited for this. Me and my sister love this series, and I'm so excited. Me and my sister are planning on marathoning the first 4 books prior to this release in September 15th. So I'm super excited for it. I obviously can't go into too much detail about this one. I didn't even read the synopsis. I was just like, I saw it on Goodreads as something that was coming out, and I texted my sister and we were like, oh my goodness, so excited. So yeah, if you're looking for like a really dark crime series, go check this series out. This would have to be a two-way tie. The first one would have to be American Dirt, and this one was just problematic in so many ways. You can go check out my review where I go into more detail about it, but I thought it was racist. I felt like it should have been an own story's voice and all that stuff. Like, I was just so mad about it, and it was just clearly very racist in my opinion, and I don't understand a lot of the, you know, praise that this book has gotten because of that, because it just like, it made me really mad. And then the other one would have to be The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I DNF'd this about like 100 pages in. I think this is either a book that you love or you hate, and I was just on the hate side. It was just really boring. I didn't like the main character. He was just very passive and naive and just kind of floated through life. And there was like there's a fine line between, you know, writing kind of visually, like having a very visual writing style, and then just being so obscure that you're just like, what the heck is going on? Like, I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't like the plot. There wasn't really a plot at all, and yeah, I was really disappointed because I really loved The Night Circus. House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, and I feel like Sarah J Maas books, especially like the Court of Thorns and Roses series, they're like guilty pleasure reads. And I read this one, I buddy read this with my friend, and it was right at the start of quarantine, and I think that's probably why I enjoyed it so much, because I could just like lose myself in this 800-page book and like kind of go on with it. Like, it's very, there's some problematic aspects in here, along with like basically all Sarah J Maas books, but I feel like this one I was just able to look past it, and I really enjoyed it. Even though like I didn't really like the main characters, I did like this world, I did like the overarching storyline, so I definitely will be continuing on with this series, probably buddy reading it with my friend along the way. But yeah, I was just surprised by it because I was just like, oh, okay, you know, this was like her first like adult series, and they just, besides the few extra F-bombs in there, it's really no different than her other works. But yeah, nevertheless, I was like here for it. Probably FREDRIK BACKMAN. I've read 2 of his books. I read Beartown and then the sequel Us Against You, and I love his writing style. I definitely want to check out more of his books in the future. I think it's very lyrical, his writing style, and I'm curious to see how that translates to some of his other works, and I've heard really great things about his other novels as well, so I'm really excited to go check out more of him. But the way, like, especially Beartown's written, it's almost written from kind of the style of The Book Thief, where it's told by a narrator who kind of knows what happens to these people. And the way I see like Beartown, the narration style, it's kind of like the spirit of Beartown kind of gliding around these people's lives, and you kind of see, you know, like what's going on and all that. So I definitely have a few of his books on my like wish list that I'm just waiting to buy at a later time. But yeah, definitely will be picking up more of his books in the future. This isn't necessarily a literary, you know, fictional crush, because I was looking at it and I'm like, there wasn't like, I didn't read a lot of books with male, like, you know, protagonists in it. But then I was like thinking back on like TV shows that came out this year, and it would definitely have to be Caliban from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I mean, like, duh. Definitely Kate Marshall from 9 Elms, and this was actually the first book I read this year, and this is Robert Bryzenda's new kind of crime series. So it follows Kate Marshall, who 15 years ago solved the biggest like crime that was going on at the time, was the 9 Elms murder. And so she ends up solving this case and almost gets killed in the process, but despite being a hero, the public tore her apart because of her personal experience with this killer. And so she kind of like, she fell apart. She is still 15 years later, she is putting back the pieces of her life that got like basically ripped apart from that event. So I really think her origin story is very, very interesting, and you can kind of see her struggle with this even 15 years later. It was very interesting to see that, and I'm very, like, I was sucked into this book, and so I'm really excited. I think the new one comes out, I don't want to say October, but I could be wrong. But I'm definitely really excited for this. She's such a complex and interesting character, and she's very, very flawed, but you can tell that she, like, she has so many things going on in her mind, and you're trying to piece together, and she does things that you disagree with, but it's like you understand like why she's doing the things she does. Like, it's a very, very interesting, and she's such an interesting character. So if you're looking for a new crime series, this one only has one book out right now, and you will not be disappointed. None, because I have an ice cold heart. So I started reading the Gallagher Girls series by Ali Carter, and I loved this series growing up. I didn't read Harry Potter until I was 13 going into grade 9, so I didn't necessarily grow up with Harry Potter like so many of you guys did. And so the Gallagher Girls series for me was a series that I grew up with. I started reading it when came out in 2006, so I probably was, you know, in grade 6, grade 5, around that age. So, and I read, the last book came out in my first year of university. So this is definitely a series that I grew up with. I definitely remember the first book the most, but after that, like, I know there's like an overarching plot and like all this stuff, and I don't remember it at all, but it's just been making me really happy kind of reliving this series again, because it's been so long since I've read it, and it just gives you that childhood nostalgia, and I feel like sometimes you need that. And so I've been loving this, like, oh my goodness, you guys, I've been loving it so much. So as I've only seen one film to movie adaptation this year, it would obviously have to be Little Women. And this was interesting because I read the book in November, like prior to the film coming out at the end of December, and I did not like the book at all. Like, I despised it. I was just like, I don't understand why people like this. But I saw the film with my sister in January, and I loved it. I thought it did a really good job at complementing the book, but also adding kind of more modern themes and making it appeal more to a modern audience. So I definitely like that a lot more, and my sister really enjoyed it as well. And then I watched it with my mom back in like April, and she liked it as well. So I think out of all, the one and only book to adaptation that I watched this year, that one was definitely my favorite. The Year One trilogy review by Nora Roberts. I wanted to incorporate more like series review of like the overarching series, and I felt like I love this series. It really took me by surprise, and I wanted to kind of highlight some of the pros and cons and like things I loved about this series, and kind of, you know, spread the word on it to about you guys. And I felt like the time that I posted it was very timely, because basically the first book is very much setting up the world, and it takes place in our world, but I guess there was some like black magic that went about, and it caused like this mass pandemic around the world. It killed 2/3 of the population within a matter of weeks, and I posted this right when quarantines were coming up in like North America, and it was very fitting given the times, and it's a little scary to think about that, but I still really liked that, like doing that series review, because I love that series so much, and it was nice talking about it. So hopefully I inspired you guys to pick it up, because that trilogy is just amazing. The first book is very foundational in setting up this world and like kind of a post-pandemic world, and light versus dark, and, you know, good versus bad magic, and then the second one kind of is where the series goes off. But nevertheless, like, this series is super good, and I cannot recommend it enough, and I'm very proud of that video. Lost Roses. I got this one as a gift for Christmas, and I haven't been buying a lot of books this year because I want to get my TBR down, but out of the books that I kind of received towards the end of 2019, this one was my favorite. So these are the only books on my TBR that I need to read that aren't a part of a series that I plan on marathoning towards the end of this year, and it is The Splendid and the Vile by Erik Larson, Long Bright River, and The Vanishing Half. And then I also have a couple books from my sister on kind of racism that I talked about in my books about anti-racism and race as well, but she is bringing those books with her when she comes back for a visit, so I'll be reading those as well. But these are like the ones currently on my shelf that I own that I want to get to, but I've done a very good job at getting my TBR down. Like I literally probably have like 10 books, and that is, for me, like, you know, deserves a round of applause, but I'm very proud about that. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you will answer these questions. I love kind of hearing about how your reading is doing this year. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.